cool. All right, I'm hitting this button. I'm hitting that button. I'm saying words like test. I'm saying words like best. I'm saying words like all the rest. What you got, Alan?
Pop-Tarts or toast?
Definitely Pop-Tarts. Oh, man. They should make a toast-flavored Pop-Tart, though.
I mean, if they're smart, they would.
I mean, brown sugar cinnamon's close, but it's not quite there. Yeah, it's a good point. If they're smart, they would. Sensei, what you got?
Oh, nothing much, man. Just trying to stay healthy, trying to keep going, trying to work out now. So
Phenomenal.
trying not to get hurt.
Well, I can sympathize with that. And welcome one and all to another amazing episode of the Saber Martial Arts Podcast. We're in the high 40s now. We're almost in our 50s. Going a little gray around the ears, but we're still handsome and fly. So tonight we've got the second edition of a little sideshow we've kind of started here called Sojido with Sensei. We've brought Sensei K on tonight. He is the star of this edition. Alan and I are kind of here to listen more than anything, but also to kind of give him some sponge to spring off of, if it as it were. And we've got some topics in front of us. They don't know what they are yet. They have a little bit of an idea of one of them. And as you may have heard in the first episode, if you listened, which you should, go back and listen. It's something in the late 30s, 37, something like that. It was Sojido with Sensei 1. Sojido being the way of cleaning. We're going through some topics that may or may not be controversial, may or may not be a little nitty-gritty, may or may not be sort of like hot topics in the martial arts or Star Wars world right now. And so I got 3 on the docket for tonight. So, I mean, let's start off by saying anything new going on with you guys. We spoke a few nights ago, but we didn't really talk to each other per se.
Hey guys, it's an honor, and I appreciate you guys, spending time with me. I was just letting you guys know it's Obon season. If you guys don't know that, that's like the Japanese Day of the Dead, kind of like remembering your.
Yeah, you sent me a cool. Okay, I gotta look at this again. You sent me something the other night? So the other night, Kay, why don't you give us like a quick summary of what we did Thursday night with Sensei Yamasaki?
Oh, we had a great time. We had the pleasure
happening over there. Sounds like you're moving your house. Are you okay? Do we need to call somebody?
I was wondering, dude, like, scramble.
Sorry, Sensei. Let's try that again. We talked to Yamasaki Sensei.
Yeah, no. We had the honor and the privilege of having Mike Yamasaki, who is the westernmost, I guess. I like the way he explained it, but he's the westernmost, I guess, the specialist when it comes to analyzing and basically figuring out where a Japanese katana comes from, right?
Like decoding the sword almost, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everything from looking at the tang, to looking at the old Japanese characters, to looking at the blade, looking at the curvature of the blade, how how it was forged. I mean, this guy is crazy. He's got great stories. Sifu Allen, and the 3 of us had the honor of actually kind of sitting down and listening to him and just talk story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so.
And man, does he have stories. And I don't say that like when your uncle comes over drunk and he's like telling you those stories. No, it was like really good stories.
Yeah. It was great. It was great because we got to hear a lot of his kind of like his origins, kind of his origin story, and we got to have some good laughs, and
definitely that. And I think it may be the first episode of the podcast that I don't I don't throw any droid sounds over. We got a couple adult words here and there, nothing too crazy, but I do think it deserves zero censorship. So we'll see how it goes. I might still throw a droid sound on top just because that's generally our, but we'll see how it goes. By the time you guys are hearing this episode, that will have already been released. That'll probably be the episode previous to this one. So you'll get to hear Sensei twice in a row, but also, man, it was a nice long, like, one of the things that he told us that I don't know if he mentioned on air that, was that he doesn't do podcasts. He turns down offers to do podcasts. And because Sensei K had asked him to do it, at least this is what he said to Alan and I, is because K had asked him, he did it as a favor to K. So a favor to K turned into an almost 3-hour chat with this gentleman who is just like 3 hours is like a drop in the bucket for what he had to say. Truthfully. So I'm just so beyond flattered and honored that he did this for us, even though he did it for you. and that's still cool. Like that, first of all, that's a testament to the person you are, but it's also the fact that, like, so for, we didn't bring it up too much, but for anybody that's not aware, if you ever watch the show Pawn Stars on History Channel, anytime there's a Japanese sword brought in, or dagger, or any sort of Japanese bladed weapon, I would say 9.5 times out of 10 they call Mike. And I think the only time they haven't called him, he was maybe out of town or something, probably in Japan looking at swords.
Most likely.
So you'll get to see a lot of him on the show and hear a lot of great historical content and context for some of these things. But one of the things that you see him do on the show, and that he talked about just very briefly on the show, that Kay, maybe you can kind of explain to us as a little tickle for the rest of the episode tonight. What is that thing that he does where he like hits his wrist and the sword pops open?
So it's just transferring energy to allow it to pop open. Believe it or not, and he explains this. If you actually guys go watch, you can type in Mike Yamasaki in YouTube, and he'll pop up, and he just as like segments on Pawn Stars, and he'll explain this is the traditional way of removing the tang from the actual handle, right? And it's funny because on a traditional katana, there's only one peg, right?
Right, it's about 3/4 up from the base of the suka, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And that one little bamboo peg actually holds it together.
That's
and
wild.
So he removes the peg, and then he holds it and he hits his wrist, and it allows it to pop out of the disgust. So it's like, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I've seen him handle, in person when I took my dad to go visit, and man, he's just amazing. He knows he just knows his way around swords. So it's like, child's play for him because he's been doing it for so long.
Well, I've seen in movies, samurai and ninja movies where they've done that move, but it's mind-boggling to me because these things are combat tools, right? So they go into battle, they slice, they dice, they cut, they parry and all these things. They're riding around on horseback, and that thing never comes apart. But all of a sudden, little old Mike like Yamasaki just grips that handle and pops his wrist a couple times, and that thing just pops right open and reveals itself to him. Just all these details that he can tell just by looking right, like with his naked eyes at it. Incredible. Yeah,
and it's funny because his move now, he takes off his glasses and he always looks. So it's like he's getting a real good look at it. But that's like his signature move.
I when I teach martial arts, I don't wear glasses a lot of the time, and my line, and it's totally the opposite of the truth, but my line is, okay, my glasses off now I can see you clearly. So I sympathize with that, but at the same time, man, just the wealth of knowledge, and the down to earth. I mean, so down to earth. That was really kind of what impressed me because, first of all, like, I'm a baby compared to this man. especially in the martial arts sense, like the life he's lived, the path he's walked compared to, and I hate to compare, but just to say, to give context and perspective, like he's been doing martial arts longer than I've been alive.
Yep.
by more than a decade. So just that alone, and I think I said this on the show too, like he's forgotten more than I will ever know about martial arts.
That's how I feel too. And man, he's, we talk about pioneers that brought martial arts to the United States, and Mike got to really, he really got to experience it for himself.
Yes, the people that you and I and Alan would probably refer to as grandmasters of our arts, he just knew them.
Yeah, which is really crazy, and it's like I was, it's a real it's a real interesting dynamic that he's been able to provide me. He's really, like I was telling you guys in the show, that he's he's a mentor to me, which he is. He's a really good connection to the old, to the new. And I really appreciate and feel honored that he's kind of taking me under his wing. So I mean, if when you guys listen to the listeners, when you guys listen to that podcast, I mean it's a real gem. Not only from the fact that he's on Pawn Stars and all this funny stories he's got, but just from that traditional aspect and what what he's been able to experience. So it just I hope to see if he's interested in joining, because he, like I was telling you guys earlier, that he really appreciated and he really had fun. So hopefully maybe there's another episode in the future.
Yeah, I mean,
that'd be awesome.
And if not, y'all need to listen and listen again and re-listen again, because it's a diamond. It's a diamond. And yeah, so I don't want to harp on it too much. I want people to listen to it. So go back to the episode before this, listen to that, and then the more you ask, the more it's possible that he will come back, and guests like him will be able to come on the show as well.
It's pretty amazing. The funny thing is, I know, like you guys kind of hear me refer to him as Yamasaki Sensei or Mike. Sometimes informally I just call him Mike. We got a really interesting dynamic, because Mike is, I consider him senpai because he's been around for a while, right? And then you kind of heard him joke around, it's like that with how he kind of has that kind of dynamic with other senseis, but it's he really understands, and kind of going to the dojo hierarchy, so to speak. But he really understands it, and he honors it, regardless of age or experience.
Yeah,
so,
but he wanted to be just Mike as much as possible at the same time, So it was kind of nice, because I do, you guys know me, everybody's sensei in Sifu, because that's just, if you earned it, you earned it, and that's just the way I like to address people. But at the same time, it was like, it's like, he just kind of wants to be Mike. Do I just let him be Mike? I don't know, but I gotta call him Sensei because that's what he is to me. But it's just one of those miracles of martial arts, as it were, where you kind of like, have this built-in sense of what a person's worth as far as the respect and the I hate this be like the reverence, because it's not like a god, but he's really a person that and people like him are people that you should just pay attention to, when they're talking, maybe listen. So yeah, he was that kind of guy for me. I really enjoyed having him. I hope he'll come back, and I'm glad he didn't mind talking to some riffraff like us. So that was phenomenal. That was last week, and a few days later, here we are. We're doing Sojido. We're cleaning the dojo tonight. And Kay, if you don't mind, let's jump into the first little topic here that I want to ask you about. Now, have you seen? It was viral, so I'm sure you've seen it. but there was a competition, a jiu-jitsu competition in, it wasn't Germany. I want to say it was like Denmark, but I don't want to be wrong and get the Danes in trouble here. But it was a jiu-jitsu competition where two black belts were competing, and the one had gotten submitted. He had gotten choked out, and he was trying to tap, but he wasn't quite able to tap, and his opponent couldn't see his hand trying to tap, so he just kept the choke on, right? The guy eventually passed out, and in the moment, I guess I don't want to speak for anybody, but in the moment, something happened where the gentleman who choked him out transitioned to an arm bar and broke his arm in like 2 or 3 ways while he was passed out. So I don't know if you guys saw this video or not, but it's all over social. If you just type in like jiu-jitsu arm break in like it's 2 German guys and they're competing, and they actually knew each other ahead of time too. Like they don't live far from each other. And so anyway, the long and short of it is, whether you've seen the video or not, the one competitor who won by both choke out and arm break didn't really realize what was happening at the time. He was just doing what the guy who got his arm broken perceived to be what his job was, which was win the competition, right? Like you're in a jiu-jitsu competition. His mindset as a black belt was, and he said this in an interview with McDojo Life. So that's how I got this. That's how I got this thought today. I was watching McDojo Life, and they were doing a talk about this. So if you guys want to go on McDojo Life's YouTube page, he does a whole interview with both of these jiu-jitsu competitors. I think the video is called like the worst jiu-jitsu referee in the world ? Or something like that. But basically, what a lot of people chalked it up to was it was either his competitor's fault for not feeling him falling asleep and then going into the arm bar and fully breaking it, versus what the guy who actually got his arm broken said, which was that it fell completely on the referee for not seeing him pass out, not seeing his arm getting hyperextended while he was not awake, and like he didn't blame his competitor, his opponent at all, because in his mind, their job as jiu-jitsu competitors is to break bones and strangle people. So, what do you guys think? I mean, I gave you a lot of word salad there. I mean, what do you think? Let's clarify it a little bit, Sensei.
Well, first things first, we're missing one extra component in that. So it's not just the competitor. It's not just competitor that got arm barred. It's not the referee. We're forgetting the actual person who actually executed too.
Mm-hmm.
Competition is competition, and this is again, this is my humble opinion, coming from a traditional background and as a competitor. You got to understand why we compete. Is it to win, right? And
right.
So the competitor can just say, "Oh, it was the ref's fault," right? Which means that he's not taking any accountability, as a martial artist. Right?
Well, okay, maybe I should clarify. So the guy who got his arm broken said it was the ref's fault.
Uh-huh.
The guy who broke his arm felt terrible and didn't actually know what to do or think.
Okay.
So he won and was not, like, the other guy was not mad at him at all. After he had seen the footage and everything, he was not mad at his opponent at all. So I should give that context before. Okay. It was not the guy who broke the arm that didn't take responsibility. If anything, he took all the responsibility at first. Okay. And then it was the guy who got his arm broken who said, "Nah, it was the refs who didn't jump in when he should have." So with that context, do you have a little bit different take now?
Actually, no. Okay.
Then I'm more interested.
But I am happy to hear that in Japanese we call it kimochi, right? That feeling, right? Of responsibility. Which means that that there is a little bit of accountability there, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
But still, competition. I think competition, I feel, brings the best in us out, but it also brings the worst of us out.
Yes, I understand.
That's why I think a lot of people, I think there's a lot of people that do traditional martial arts, or even just martial arts for fun, tend to either like it or they hate it, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, it's a combination of things. It's competition wise, yes, the referee should have saw it and should have controlled the match. We're supposed to be doing that. I mean, as a referee or as an official, right? The first thing that's really important is the safety of the competitors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
agree with that.
Yeah, and that also sets the tone of what's allowed, right? Especially depending on rule sets. Talk a little bit about sabers right now. I think that's the biggest problem that we're having across the board, and I think a lot of people are having we don't have a universal set of rules that everybody can agree against, right? And the level of, like I said, the level of control that we talk about, everybody has a different idea of what control is, because control is relative to who you practice with.
Okay.
And so it's really hard to get something. That's why I think martial arts kind of led to federations, and federations kind of say, hey, look, these are the rules that we accept, and according to the safety parameters that we look at. Now, doesn't matter what competition I've been to, that I've always heard referees get pounded on, right? Because that ref sucks, or oh man, the officiating was horrid.
Well, and to be fair, this referee has been in jiu-jitsu for, I want to say, like 20 years or something like that. He'd been around the block. He'd been refereeing competitions and had been a competitor himself as well. So that kind of muddies the waters even more, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, I remember, just a personal experience, right? And this is just in the recent, I'd say 4 or 5 years for me. I think it was the last, it's about 5 years now, 2019. So I had just gone to Japan, and the day I got back, I had to drive 4 hours to Las Vegas for TSL 3.
Uh-oh. We lost you there, Kay, for a second. Oh, there you are. You're back.
Okay, cool.
So you had to go to, you were going to Vegas for TSL?
Yeah, I was in Japan, and the day I got back, I drove 4 hours to go to Vegas for TSL 3, I think it was.
And that's when I met you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, true.
That was when I was still a national fight director for them. And so, they were expecting me to do a lot of judging that weekend.
Yeah.
I had severe jet lag. I did as much as I could, and I dismissed myself because I knew I wasn't gonna be able to handle that, right? And they were wondering why, and I told them, look, I'm no good to anybody if I'm in there, and I'm judging half-assedly, right?
Yeah. That's dangerous.
It is dangerous, and I think that's where I think seasoned, like officials and seasoned martial artists who actually do judging and stuff, they have to realize their own limits.
Yeah.
Because they have to be on their game.
Mm-hmm.
I have a little bit of experience, with high level, karate, refereeing, and there's a lot of things you got to look out for, especially like judging. If you're using scores, right, you can't slack off. There's rules now. For forms, if you give within the same panel of competitors the same score, right, that's a fault, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say the average is 6.5, right, and your field is from 6.0 to 7.0, right?
Yeah.
There's 10 competitors, right? You got to score them in order, and you got to do that in a way where you got to understand the field. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't give a competitor, this guy's a 6.3, and the next person comes, it's the same. You can't give him a 6.3. It's got to be better or worse, right?
Yeah.
And so it's no joke. It's not very easy either. And then when you're doing things like when you're doing things like like sparring or fighting, it's even more. I mean, Kendo just had their world championships in Milan just this past couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And the Koreans and of course the Taiwanese, everybody, they're all complaining like, oh, the judging's so horrible, right? They need to get better judging. But in my experience, Kendo judging is some of the fastest judging there is in the world.
Well, and
Right.
very difficult. Like
Yeah.
we've said that already, but kendo is like very intricate as far as like the way the techniques are supposed to be performed, and if they're and you can correct me anytime I'm wrong here, but like if they're not performed correctly and they still make like you don't get the same score as if they were performed correctly and made contact.
It's not just about correctly. There's criteria.
Right,
form,
right.
spirit, right, and I mean, we haven't talked about zanshin, or the lingering mind,
Right.
Because you got to be in the right place at the right time, taking the right advantage with the right spirit, with the right technique, and and you got to call your shots in kendo.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't hit the arm and call head, right? You got to call
Right.
if you're hitting the arm, you got to call arm.
This is one of the coolest parts of kendo is that I intend to hit you in the head.
Yeah.
If I hit you in the head, I get a point. If I don't get a point.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that until more recently either. Like, and I was like, oh man, that is wild too. That's like Babe Ruth calling where he's going to hit the baseball, right?
right. So yeah, it's relatively difficult. So like anybody, if it's he just hit you, you just hit him in the arm. No. There's a lot more to it, criteria wise.
Well, and I would even, sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I would even argue that it's slightly more difficult to possibly a lot more difficult when you're dealing with grappling because
you can't see everything.
You can't see everything, exactly. And you definitely can't feel what the other person's feeling.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, you're not moving as fast as some of these kendo guys are, right?
Correct.
If you're ground and pound and you're on there and you're grappling, and you're moving in and you're trying to do, yeah, it's difficult. I mean, if you've ever seen wrestling, right? It's sometimes it's hard. It's like, trying to pin the other guy. You're trying to run a half.
But that has very specific criteria as well. And I mean, so does jiu-jitsu, but it's a broader criteria.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how you can get to those submissions and things is, it can sometimes change in a split second, like it did. This guy went from a choke into an armbar. It's a totally different technique, totally different. So I sent you guys the video from McDojo Life. The footage of the break is just like the first 30 seconds of the video, but
wow. I'll have to take a look.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to do it right now. You can if you want, but for anybody who's listening, I'll try to remember to include that in the video description as well. But
hey, real quick though, just to get back
go for it. Keep going.
That match, right? Saying, look, it's a three-way thing. It's both the competitors and the judge, right?
Yeah.
Because like in competition, it's like you got I think that's the one thing I think about Western competition that we don't talk about is the different mindset, right? And I'm talking about in Japanese you kind of hear last time I made the term mushin, right? Like really famous no mind, right?
Yeah.
I think when we get when we get into competition, we tend to really push that. Oh, I gotta win, and that's all you're thinking. I mean, not thinking about, all these different other aspects, right? In Kendo, what's more important is that you're thinking about the lingering mind or the current state of mind, right?
Yeah.
So you're looking at everything. That's why, that whole Zanshin piece is so important because you got to show that you can take that point and then you're ready for the next point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So grappling, you're sitting there, you're fighting for every inch, every opportunity, every opening to try to get in and try to get your technique on, right? Is that sometimes I think that mindset we lose that mindset,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what happens a lot in competition. Right? I'm not saying Kendo's bad because it happens in Kendo too because Kendo's competition now too.
Yeah.
But but the way that they set it up in regards to how they train and whatnot is a little bit different. Is I gotta win or I gotta do this or I got we're not thinking you're thinking 3 steps ahead, but it's not about about winning. There's a lot of martial art mentalities thinking that, and you mentioned earlier, it's like losing is winning, right? There's a famous saying in Kendo too, saying that, look, you got to get hit without being hit, right? And that people will be like, what the hell are you talking about? It's because that's the only way to learn, right? By getting hit. And this is some of the things I was trying to tell some of the guys I used to, play sabers with, is that you can't be perfect, right?
Yeah.
You can't be flawless, right? And you can't get to a certain point until you understand what your own flaws are, right? And that's why I really believe pain is a good teacher, because that's what teaches you, right? That's what's open, right? And as a teacher, and Sifu could probably agree with this, is that you got to teach your students those things in subtle ways so they understand, oh, if I do that, that hurts, right?
Yeah.
I got to figure out a way to cover that. I got to figure out a way, okay, I got to stop doing that so I don't get, I don't feel that pain anymore. Which is the martial part of, the safety part of martial arts, is right, because martial is about war and killing. That's what these arts came from.
Well, yeah,
right?
A lot of self-defense and traditional techniques, and I think Sensei Mike talked about this a tiny bit too. Is they were intended to maim, kill, end careers, end lives, right? So that's a little different than the way that we use some of the same exact techniques today in competition.
Exactly.
Or at least it should be.
Yeah. But there are certain things that are very important. Like I said, the different mindsets.
Yes.
The beginner's mindset, the everyday mindset, the no mindset, right? The fortitude, or the immovable mindset. There's all these different things that are built into dull, or the way, right?
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about one Japanese martial art or Okinawan martial art. It's built into all the Japanese martial arts. These are all things that kind of cross over. And to a point, they are pulled from Chinese martial arts. So I believe there's those precepts in Chinese martial arts as well. So
let me ask you this, because this topic is going to lead into the next topic pretty handily. But while we're still on it, and Alan, you can jump in anytime too.
Sure.
Because I kind of want to explore the mindset of not really the guy. I feel like I don't want to dismiss responsibility from the guy who won. But I do understand that in the moment, it's not necessarily that you're just trying to win. You're also not trying to get your arm broken or you reversed and choked out, right? Like, so there is still an element of like, if I win, then I have defended myself correctly. So I don't want to like expunge the guy of all responsibility. But I'm thinking about the mindset of the guy who got his arm broken, right? And he was a very intelligent man. If you watch that McDojo Life video, Rob from McDojo Life, shout out to Rob. We'd love to have you on. Come on the show. Actually, Rob's the kind of guy that would do it. Anyway, he interviews both of these gentlemen, both of the competitors. I think he reached out to the referee, but never got a response. He talked to both of these guys, and they're both very intelligent. Seems like very good, like physical martial artists. They know jiu-jitsu very well and all of that. They're well known within the community in their area and stuff. But the one thing is, they're sort of like, as a competitor, I would never let that happen to me. And I understand he freaking fell asleep. He didn't really have a ton of control once he was asleep. And he did try to tap. But if I woke up, I would kind of be like, did you really have to break my arm? Like, I know we're in a jiu-jitsu competition, but at a certain point, if I wasn't tapping and my arm was hyped, like, I don't know. I feel like that would have been my attitude. Is that the wrong attitude? Should I not maybe, like, I don't know. That was not his attitude. He had like pins and like reconstruction in his arm. He had like braces and splints and all kinds of robot gear keeping his arm back together. And he was just sitting there like, nah, man, we're doing jiu-jitsu. We're supposed to break each other if we don't tap. Like, but you tried to tap. I don't know, man. And maybe that is the referee. I don't know. It's a muddy pit we're in.
See, this is where I kind of have my kind of internal issue with that is that in competition that should never have happened.
Yeah, and you shouldn't want that
So
to happen, or you shouldn't like. Well, I guess it just happened to me because that's the sport I'm in. I don't know, man. Is it really like?
and I think that's the detriment of competition for
Yeah.
competition, right? And so with that kind of mentality, I gotta win, right? Um, I think it dilutes some of the reason why we train, right?
Yeah.
Competition was mainly determined, and this is, and people are going to disagree with me, but competition was developed to test your skill, right? Now, there's, what happens is, like, there's things that got to get thrown into that because people, this is just human nature. People want to show that they're better than somebody else, right?
Yeah.
It's, and it's unfortunate, right? But there are some situations in the world where they say, hey, look, let's compare notes, right? And it's funny. There's some really good research that's been done by Patrick McCarthy. He's in Okinawa. Jesse Ainkamp, who's the karate nerd, especially coming from a karate perspective, about dog boxing and, like, incense and tea houses where monks used to get together because they couldn't practice in the open, but they would go, hey, let's play, right? Meaning, say, let's get together and let's train and compare notes, right? And I think Sifu could probably attest to that too, where it's not about her trying to hurt the other person. It's about, you know, what you guys can execute, how you've trained. And I think if you guys have heard me this about, if you heard me say this about competition before, it's like, if I go into a saber competition, lightsaber competition, it's like, and I've been training and I want to hit your arm, right, or your wrist, right? If I could pull that off, right, I've executed what I trained to do, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's purpose for action, right? It's purpose for action. It's not about whose style is better. Unfortunately, that's kind of like been like the topic of, movies and, stories and old martial art, stories and whatnot. But, what's better than this? What's better than that? Or my style's better than yours? Or I'm stronger than this. But I think the true essence is about, okay, well, what I'm doing effective, right?
Well, and that was kind of the guy's argument who lost was like, well, this guy did what he's trained to do, right? He's trained to do jujitsu and an arm bar's training to break the arm. But there's this part of me that's like, but then you can't do the thing you're training to do anymore. It's like my spinning hook kick is training to knock somebody's jaw to the side of their face. Like literally take the mandibles and separate them from the cheek. But that's not what I do when I kick somebody with it. I barely touch them. And even in competition, like in kickboxing or MMA, that's different. You're legally bound by your contract to cause damage to the other person. They have this mechanism where they can say, stop causing damage to me. It's called a tap out, right? But that's their legal mechanism to stop your legal mechanism for winning and getting paid, which is damage. But that's its own thing. That is literally a governed body that says that, and you get paid for it. You're providing sports, and it's different. Okay, in a jiu-jitsu competition or a traditional karate competition or traditional martial arts competition of any kind, it's almost frowned upon when a knockout happens, even by accident. It's almost frowned upon when an arm bar causes a break or a serious hyperextension in the knee or something like that, or somebody actually goes to sleep on the mat instead of tapping or getting separated by the ref. I feel like in any of the competitions I've been to where money was not at stake, it was frowned upon for a real true finish to happen.
And I think that's what I'm trying to say is that indirectly, is that because now we're blurring the lines, even in a traditional, like tournament, right, or a traditional event, we have people that look to it as a sport,
Yeah.
right?
And maybe they're sponsored, or maybe they do have money on the line somehow.
Somehow, or it's that winning mentality.
Yeah, yeah. The
It's not,
currency of favor by the fans, so to speak.
or the dojo, or I want that medal.
My coach's favor, the medal. That's right. Yeah. Or, there are some sick, and this is maybe a word of advice to anybody who enters in a competition to have Alan, you've talked about this many times, especially considering your armor, is you don't know what that person really does and does not want to do to you. You don't know if that person really gets a kick out of breaking your arm or choking you to sleep.
Right.
And some people really do. Some people want, and they will tell you they don't. And they will be believable. And then they will get in there and do exactly what they said they weren't going to do with a smile on their face.
Right. And then they'll blame you for it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You didn't have your hands up, or,
Yeah.
they said we were supposed to hit each other. Well, yeah. I mean, but look, dude, it's a lightsaber fight, right? Or whatever the case may be.
Right.
So, or,
that's why I think those the different types of mentalities are important, because
well, I mean, if Manscaped wants to put their name on your rash guard, right? Like, now you have this currency you want to deal in that maybe is not as healthy for you to be dealing in if you have to get your Manscaped isn't going to pay for your arm to get reconstructed.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Sorry, Manscaped. That has nothing to do with you.
No, but,
it has nothing to do with you, but you're part of the problem.
But if you want to sponsor the Saber Martial Arts podcast, we'll happily let you buy it. Oh, sorry.
No, but seriously, those different types of the mindsets, right? That here's the funny thing: it's like you see sports now, even in karate, even in jiu-jitsu, even you see these guys when they go and they win, you see them celebrating, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like so I think that itself is kind of lending to that kind of sport mentality. I have to win mentality, right?
It's okay to be excited that you won.
Yeah.
However, you should also maybe bow, maybe go shake your opponent's hand, maybe give him a hug, the whole nine.
Well, let me put that in a little context, because I'm using kendo again as an example. In kendo, let's say you score, right? Any sort of celebration that you show negates that point. They will take that point away. So they built in humility, because you basically celebrating on the expense of your opponent, right? That means you're dishonoring your opponent, because your opponent gave the point to you, right? It's not that you took it. It was given to you because you took the opportunity to take it, right? That's the different mentality. Instead of, I went and I scored, right?
That is very different. That is a complete opposite mentality to the general, and I don't know if it is or isn't a Western thing, but definitely the sense of competition that I grew up with.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. There's a level of humility built in, also the honor and respect of your opponent. Right?
Yeah, and I definitely had that. I'm sure we all did growing up in martial arts, but just the sense of like you can't feel like not that you can't feel good, but you can't even like raise your fist and be like a little excited. Yeah. That's a stark difference.
Yeah, and I think that's what lends to, like, I think in traditional competition, right? Because we have that, I think we forget that piece, and we're looking to score, we're looking to win, and there are people with different mentalities. I might be the traditional guy and say, hey, look, I'm just here to see what I can do, and the other guy's like, I'm gonna kick your ass.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a blurred line there, and so there, on the mat, there, I think there's a level of competition that that we don't see because of the different mentalities we have, right? Now, as an official, right, you should be, like you have to control that match. I was about to say you have to control that match.
Yeah.
Right, and to the point where it's to the safety of both competitors, regardless if one's aggressive and the other one isn't.
So, as a competitor, too, again, just like be aware of who and what's going on. And if you're the first one to compete that day, I kind of feel bad for you. I feel like
No, those are always the hard ones.
yeah,
Right? You know,
you never know what you're walking into or what, and you're cold for the day too. So
yeah, and that's where the officials got to take it. You know,
mhm.
they when they collaborate, right? So like, you know, usually when I used to do a lot of for TSL and for Sabers and everything, I used to say, hey, look, I would call them up before we start start our ring, and I will let them know, hey, I need a couple matches to basically coordinate, and I gotta be able to
Mhm.
I gotta um, I gotta basically, how do I say, I gotta adjust to the fighters, right?
Yeah.
And so if you see me wave off a score, that means like it's because it's like I don't think it was clean, right? Or if it wasn't score worthy, I will call it off. Don't take it
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
let them know. Don't take it as don't take it as me saying no, you suck, right? And it's like it's saying, look, I'm looking to set the level of standard for everybody in the ring
Yes. Yes.
to
Yes.
understand, and it's giving the first couple of matches an ability to kind of adjust,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? To
That's a neat point.
yeah,
I feel like a lot of people don't think about that with Sabers either because maybe they don't have the experience, or maybe they do, but they've never run an event, or maybe they have, but they just don't have the team they need, or maybe they do, and they just don't have it ironed out yet.
well, it's hard because we got a lot of great fighters, but they
Yeah.
don't have traditional backgrounds,
Correct.
or the only kind of competitive sort, let's say saber or lightsaber or like sword type of competition is like what's out there right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we still, I mean, we're still, I keep saying it, we're still so far behind from having good judges. We're catching up, and a lot more people are getting involved, but we still, we still don't have a standard, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
We're working on it. We're working on it.
Yeah, we
we're
are. Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, Alan,
We're,
I don't know if he got it from you or you just picked it up from him or what happened, but what is it that I believe both you and Courtney do it whenever you are starting a competition? You take a point from everybody or you give everybody a warning. What is that about?
So whenever there is a event that I run, and Courtney had started to do this as well, but not as blatantly
Mm-hmm.
or with the same words that I use.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
tell everybody they're already in trouble. So I tell everybody that if there is excessive power, if a judge, not just me, but any judge decides that you hit somebody with too much power, or if your opponent says that you have too much power, then you will get a warning. Now, because I just said that, this is your first warning.
Right.
You'll
Right.
get 3 warnings. That was your first one. The second one will be in the ring. Third one, you're kicked out of the tournament.
Right.
Doesn't matter if you won every single fight. Doesn't matter if you're winning your fight. You were kicked out because you, for some reason, decided that you could not control yourself or your blade.
You couldn't do the
So that
one thing we asked you to do.
right, and because our game, lightsabers, is a game of touch.
Yes.
It's yes, it's easy to go in and with structure and create a little bit of striking, but if you are skilled, if you practice correctly, and you're not just wailing on a Pell or hopefully not your sparring partners, the idea is that you can swing these things and barely touch, and the other person will still be able to feel it. You'll hear it. You'll hear the sound of the polycarbonate blade on the armor.
Some sabers
which
flash when they hit.
yeah, and it makes a different sound as if it hit the blade, right? If it hits a finger or a hilt, it makes a different sound. So that's very much a make my job easier judging you, by making sure that you are not, a knucklehead
Yeah.
and just wailing on people, because one, you'll be kicked out of the tournament, and two, you'll be at the very least red carded or red listed
Oh yeah.
for
Oh
the
yeah.
next for the next event. And then, if you keep on doing things like that, then you'll be ultimately blacklisted, which means that you're not even invited anymore
Yeah,
as a competitor.
I've seen in tournaments before. Yeah, I've judged, here and there in traditional martial arts and lightsaber. I've done my fair share and whatever. But I always like to pick up what the head judges are putting down.
Hmm.
And
Right. That's the thing is, and anybody out there that's looking to run a fighter meeting at the very
yes, this is
beginning of
what
the
I'm getting at.
competition is
Yes,
so important.
It is
yes,
so
A judges meeting as well.
yes, yes.
yeah.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. And then the head judges, at least in all of the good martial arts tournaments I've ever been to, and that doesn't necessarily mean like a big one. Sometimes just the really small local ones have been great. The the head judges will always talk to the fighters before each event too. Like, now keep in mind, we're not talking about kata competition or scripted self-defense or demo team. We're talking about strictly kumite and combat.
Right.
They've always like, in one of the karate tournaments I was in, I wasn't competing, but I was coaching, and I had high schoolers in it and some junior high kids too, and such. And the head judge of one of the high school rings, it was a black belt division, so they were high schoolers, but they were all black belts, and he was very clear that they all entered, as the way he put it was like sharp-minded high schoolers, right? He was trying to give them like their props, right? Like, you guys are smart kids, you train hard, you came here, and if any one of you gets knocked out, like, it is it is the person who knocked you out's fault, and they are going to get disqualified. Basically, his point was, and I didn't say that as well as he did, but his point was, you all came here to do the same thing, and you should all show each other the same respect to try and do that with technique, with prowess, with humility, to use Kay's word, but also with confidence and control. And he's like, we want to see you doing all your best techniques, but we don't want to see you knock each other unconscious because,
Right.
you're high schoolers. You guys got to go home and do good things with your life.
Right.
He was much more eloquent about it, but the point is the same. And judges have these meetings with fighters all the time, and they should, and they need to. And referees in the UFC even do this. They go to each fighter, and I think they're legally obligated, again, to do this. They go to the fighters before the event starts, before their match starts. Okay, I'm going to be the referee in the ring with you. This is what you can expect when I call this word. This is what you can expect if I touch this part of your body this many times, or this is what you can expect if your opponent does this to you, or you do this to your, right? Like, so many. Do you have questions for me? There is no stupid question. Ask me anything you want right now. But if you don't ask me and you don't know that you're breaking a rule in the ring, that is not an excuse for breaking it, right? Like, so this goes from the very lowest levels in your neighborhood karate school tournament to the very highest levels of the UFC.
Right.
And it's not a joke.
No, it isn't, and that's the macro level, right? So I think to answer your question, Mark, go back to why Alan and Sifu, Courtney do what they do, right? You got to do it at the micro level as well. So you have to talk, with your judges, you with the table, with the fighters, right? And if you don't see that, because just because you talk to them in the beginning, it doesn't mean that they're going to execute that way. So you gotta calibrate in the ring as a judge, right? And so you need to let the fighters know, hey, look, I'm serious, right? Tone it down, right?
Yeah.
Take a little bit off the top of the power. It's like, I used to give warnings when I heard the sabers. When you hear the sabers whistle, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, hey, no, hey, take. I would give a warning. Hey, warning, power.
Yeah.
It's like, you put too much on that.
Well, and you're probably sensitive to that too, because when you do practice with a katana, you're listening for that sharp whistle, right? Of the blade cutting the air.
Oh, more so, I think I got it more from Kendo because
Oh, okay.
yeah, because Kendo, you can, those things bend and they like I mean sometimes we talk about even with light speed like with light speed sabers, right? They're really bendy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so but when you start hearing that whistle or that kind of whoosh sound, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot on it, right?
Yeah.
There is. I mean, even with the 1 inchers that we use, it's like, man, you can hear that coming, and that means there's a little bit of an edge to that. So, but what I'm going to say is that when you start seeing those things, especially after you've had those talks in the beginning before the event starts, right? You got to calibrate physically in the ring
Mm-hmm.
and let the fighters know, hey, I was serious when I had that talk.
Well,
Tone
and
it down.
you'll hear, I'm
So
sorry,
it's
Kay. Sometimes you'll hear
no,
like judges say things like watch your power or control. You have to have the balls, for lack of a better word, to actually stop it. And
yeah,
that is a scary situation for some people. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to tell people the truth. They don't know
and,
how to stop them from doing things.
and I think that
And nobody
that's
wants to get in
part
a
of
physical, real fight either.
yeah. And I think that's the control part where I think a lot of judges, especially in the saber world right now, they like to talk through what happened in the match, and they kind of waste too much time explaining what happened. Right? They can't make a call. I hated that.
Mm,
So when I
Thank
get the
you.
call, yeah,
yeah, I
I say
agree.
either point or no point, right? And if there's a questionable call, that's when you explain things up. But I think when you're at the front, right, and you're the main judge in the ring, you gotta take control and say, hey, this is my call, right?
Before anything has even been swung at another person, you need that
Yeah,
control.
Hmm.
and the control is not only while they fight; it's also it's also how you control the fighters in the ring,
Well, in your
right? If they're
demeanor
not,
too, would
yeah,
you agree? Like just
oh
the
yeah,
presence you carry. If you carry Mr. Burns, from The Simpsons, and you're all hunched shoulders and you're not beady eyed and you're not really sure what's going on, nobody's
no,
first of all going to trust you, but second of all, no way you're going to be making good calls in there.
yeah. No, I
Right.
tell my black belts when they're training them to training them in the ring in the dojo. I tell them, look, you're the alpha, right? The
Yeah,
only the only person you answer to is the head judge at the table, right?
you're Tom Brady,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
It's like the corner judges. The corner judges are they work for you, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the thing. Like, and I know it's a little bit different, from some of the from the judging styles we have in sabers because everybody just kind of throws up something. But I used to make it clear and say, look, if I call you off, I call you off,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
If I have a questionable call, I would actually call them up and say, okay, hey, what did you see? What did you see? What did you see? And I would actually go through, and then I would send them back, and I make a final decision. But the decision was mine and mine. But I'm not gonna sit there. That was the thing. I was like, I can't sit there and like read an epic off. Well, this person swung for this
Oh
person
no,
this
draw.
person that.
Oh,
Oh man, come on! And it's like no
oh.
offense to anybody that does that because I know HEMA they tend to do that a little bit more.
It
Um, you
depends
know,
on the competition too. Like I
yeah.
noticed, there's one competition that's really good in my opinion, as far as not doing too much delay, and that's the swordfish competition. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
Oh, you know.
Swordfish is a huge international HEMA competition. I don't know if it's still going on. It was, but it's phenomenal, and the judging is very, very direct. There's one person in the middle. There's two on the sides, which is my favorite number of judges is three.
Yep. Three. Three.
So anyway, and just everything is very quick, concise, and I've seen them throw points out that they couldn't agree on long before they debated it, right? Like they might really quickly like talk to each other for 2 seconds, but if the head judge wasn't happy, boom, point goes away.
Right.
And that's the kind of stuff I like to see because karate is a fast sport. You know that, Kay.
Yeah.
Alan, you know that as well because you come from a background of you've seen like, oh my God, like Sancho and Chinese kickboxing is just, I mean, seriously fast stuff. Shuai Jiao and oh my God. So anyway, it's fast, and saber fighting
Yep.
is fast too if it's done correctly. Fast doesn't need to mean you're killing each other, But because it happens so fast, why on earth would you stick everybody's feet in cement to do the talking part?
Uh-huh.
It just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, it cools down the fighters. You can't get rhythm. There's a lot of things to it.
I know. Okay, let's put an abrupt halt on this, but it's not a true halt because the next topic is a clear transition, which is I sent you guys a video earlier, another video by Jesse Enkamp, who you mentioned earlier, the karate nerd. So karate by Jesse, and he did a video about how a lot of pro fighters have decided that hard sparring or anything other than play fighting is no longer a part of their training regimen and does not need to be. Some examples of people who have basically not nixed sparring as a practice, but nixed sparring where real damage can be done. Max Holloway, George St. Pierre. There was somebody else that was like, oh, I haven't hard sparred since the whatever fight. And it was like years. And George St. Pierre had an interesting quote, and maybe, Kay, you can jump off of this to start the topic out, which was he had seen more careers ended in the gym by maybe ego or whatever caused people to spar the way they were sparring hard than any careers ended in the octagon.
Yeah, no, I agree with that statement.
So what's that about? What's up with sparring that way?
So here's the thing: the biggest misconception, and I don't know if this is from boxing or not, but is that you got to fight hard to be able to execute. When it
train the way you fight.
Yeah, it comes to game time. And the thing is that that's never. I mean, that's never been my case. Like in my traditional training, right? It's like if I was getting ready for a tournament, I wasn't knocking people out, right, to get to the tournament. It was more situational training, right? Upper strikes coming. What kind of variations can I do against an upper strike? Roundhouse.
Right.
What kind of variations can I do for roundhouse? It's more of those kind of training, because it's about reflex, right, and an instinct, and you're trying to build those things in. When something's coming at you, you got to be able to, and I think you guys heard me talk about it, you got to take advantage of the opportunity that's presented to you, right, in order to take that or steal your opponent's breath to get that point, right? Because the worst thing for any competitor is you see the opening and you see that, but you don't have the timing or the ability to get there. Right? That's the worst in my case. It's like, man, there's the target. I need to get there, but I can't take advantage of the opportunity. Woo, you okay?
Yeah. I just
To me, not being able to take advantage of the opportunity is the bane of my training. If I, it makes me feel inadequate in every single way, right? Because I know what to do in my mind, but my body can't do it, right? But if I'm sitting there training hard and just knocking people out and and just going hardcore, committed sparring, all, is that gonna really be able to enhance that? I don't think so.
Well, how much damage are you taking at the same time? That's the ultimate question, right?
Exactly. Because the thing is, again, I think that comes from that I gotta win at all costs mentality. Right? And it's not about that. Like in competition, and again, this is my own personal opinion. It's being able to purpose for action. Can you do what you train to do? Right? Situational. Right? You need to do some sparring matches to get your stamina up. Most standard rounds are 3-minute rounds, right?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that, like the difference between hard sparring, hard contact versus hard sparring, hard cardio.
Yeah, and I think to be safe, I mean, most of these guys are going cardio now because they need.
That's what I mean for our fighters in the gym. Recently, not recently, like over the last year or so, there's a couple of the younger guys who kind of get the wrong idea when our coach is like, listen, you got to buckle down. get your nose in your match, and work. What they're getting the wrong idea, and they're like there's this one kid. He's been knocked out in practice so many times by people who are not trying to knock him out. And I don't know what the hell it is, but I can't spar with him anymore because he makes me want to knock him out. Like he's not like rude. He's actually really kind and like amiable as a person. But when he spars with me and I hit him clean, he zombies forward, and I'm like, dude, like I've busted his nose open so many times without even trying, just with like a simple, like light back fist. And that's the thing. Like, it's not even hard contact now. And just the amount of times you've put your face into hard punches and gone like, it's cool, bro. You know, let's just keep going. Like, no, it's not cool. If you punch me hard as hell in sparring, I'm time out right then and there. And I'm telling you that the next time that happens, you're getting elbowed.
Yeah.
That's the end of it. Okay? I'm going to break your knee next time. I'm going to kick you in the knee and break it because this is your warning. Like you said, Alan, the first warning was before you even put your mouth guard in today. Mm-hmm. When you bowed into the cage, the same cage as I was in, that was your warning. Right? And now I'm giving you your second warning. If you hit me that hard ever again, I'm elbowing you through the back of your skull. There's your warning. You signed a paper, right? So did I. But that paper did not say that you were going to try to hurt me.
Well, I see it like this. God said turn the other cheek. If somebody slaps you, he doesn't say what to do after he slaps you in the other cheek.
Yeah, but Sensei told me what to do. My Sensei told me what to do when he slaps me in the other cheek, right?
Exactly.
That's a good point, Alan. That's a really good point.
Yeah. At that point, it's up to me, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the going hard or going home crowd is, you know, they're looking for something else.
Yeah.
That's not, and if you are one of those people, or you meet one of those people, you gotta ask them, hey, what are you actually here for? Are you training for a fight, or are you fighting? Because if you're fighting, that's going to be a different conversation.
Line. I'm saving that line for the next time one of these 20-somethings gets cheeky with me. Yeah. It's like I told you guys last week. Sometimes you just got to remind them that, you know, the old guy can still kick him in the head. But I don't like being that guy either. You know, as somebody who's there to just train, and I think this is like Max Holloway too. Like for him, he's getting paid millions to go in there and get punched hard.
Right.
Why would he let you do that to him for free?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And so that's part of the thing, right? And a lot of combat sport movies show that behavior, and it's usually the bad guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the most recent Creed movie was basically that.
Sure.
It was just like, bro. You're totally missing the point of why we gave you the opportunity to spar the champ.
Yeah.
And now you busted him up. So that's an issue. Here, if you really want to fight, here's a fight. You know, and that's the weird thing, especially with combat sports, is what I love about, you know, a lot of the sword stuff is that it's not you physically punching somebody with your fist or kicking somebody with your foot or choking somebody out or making them submit. It's I hit you with this weapon, right? I'm very much showing you that I hit you. You know, whether it's Olympic fencing, I hit you first. You know, I got the right away. You know, or it's kendo, where it's like I'm going to hit you in the head.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I hit you in the head. Fighters win and decide fights. Fighters. Yeah. The referees are there to make sure everybody else knows.
Ah.
Yeah, no, that's do that.
Uh-huh.
Because it's very. And here's the thing: if you are in a competition, especially in, like sportification, right, where it's for points, you know, I don't care who you are. You know when you get hit, but you don't. You might not know who hit first, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's where the referee comes into play. If the and that's where the ref says, okay, I give the point to this guy because they hit first, the split second
Sure.
beforehand, for
Sure. Or
whatever.
the judges who
Yeah,
get
or the
crapped
judges.
on all the time, especially
Yeah,
in
that's what they're there
yeah.
for. They are the arbiter of that.
Yeah.
But you know you got hit, so I'm not in the camp of the people that say I'm not going to call the shots that hit me. You know, there is a small group of people out there that are not going to take honor calls or
Yeah.
or call like, no, I got hit there. It's one of those things. Well, I'm not sure what it is in their training that told them that was the correct way to be, but you only do yourself a disservice if somebody hits you and you know you got hit. It doesn't matter if you know who hit first. You know you got hit,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
what are you trying to hide? You got hit.
Yeah.
Well, I know for us in all three of our training with lightsabers, especially
Mhm.
we call our own shots. We tell our students
Yeah,
they have to call their own shots. We
yeah,
all the time. Um,
right,
and we're always judging all the time. Hashtag
right,
always judging.
right.
But the other thing is like in sparring, like kickboxing and MMA, I can't not tell people when they hit me. And I know with some of the guys that I train with, some of the like pro fighters, just a couple of them, they're like really serious, like probably too serious individuals, self serious, and they don't like it when I like tap the part they kicked
Mhm.
me in or the part like and I can't help it. I'm just gonna I'm gonna give you props, man. And maybe it's because I'm a coach. Maybe it's because I'm an instructor. Like, you know, when a student does something right, I have to tell them you did that right. You know, but when I'm sparring with somebody, I just like to know that we know what's going on, both of us, right?
Yeah.
But like,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
Well,
but
it's an
in oh, go ahead.
interesting way to. Well, just an interesting way of training too, right? Because if you call like, "Hey, you hit me here," I know, especially with open hand or non-weapon martial arts, it's very much important to say, "Hey, you hit me here. Good job,"
Yeah,
because because especially if you're training, right? In the middle of a fight, you don't do that because you know you got hit, right?
yeah,
But it's very important in training so that you give feedback to your partner,
Yep.
right? You give feedback in training. You don't uh you don't assume that you're going to go for the knockout, right, or anything like that. It's just it's feedback. It's
yeah.
like, hey, you did that move correctly, do that again. It's
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
And that's the kind of sparring that we're talking about versus every time that 3 minutes starts, it's another actual fight, like Kay said, like or like you said, Alan, are you training to fight or are you here to fight? Um, so Kay, like, how does that look in the because you come from like the Kumite side, which is pretty hardcore in its own right. Like a lot of people don't realize that those dudes in pajamas with black belts around their waist, like they can bang. Uh, but
Yeah.
like,
No.
what is that
Absolutely.
training like?
So I don't know if you guys know, Goju is is very Goju Okinawan Goju is very much so the karate styles that does bang it up.
Yeah.
So like like we our main kata sanchin is body hardening, right? And then
Uh-oh. We lost you again. Hello?
I'm here.
I'm still here.
Oh, there you go. So you mentioned Sanshin and then you dropped out for a second.
Oh, so yeah, so kata sanchin is the goal or the hard part of my style, and then the ju kata is tensho, which is not really soft, but it's more of a kind of a think about taking a like a rag, right? getting it wet and then squeezing the water out, right? The goal part of Sanching is like squeezing it out really hard, but Tensho or the Ju part is almost like squeezing it out and keeping the tension in the rag, right? So they're both hard, but it's a different kind of hardness, right? So we train our bodies that way, right? And through our kata that way, right? And so in our kumite, it comes out very much so. So my senior, Donnie Takemoto, if you're listening to Heads Up Man, he and I have been training for probably the last 30 years together. And, like when we go kumite, it's funny because Sensei is, that's just Kei and Donnie doing kumite in the back. Don't worry about them. But, we go hard, like we go hard because, like we both have different styles, like, he's a very, he's an engagement, he's more of an engagement kind of style where he actually likes to lead off. I'm more of a, kind of a counter striker. So, we different strikes. But the funny thing is like, we go hard and we it up, different technique, different style. And then it's funny because, after we're done, we're done, right? We kind of, we kind of like, try to exchange notes, but it's not until a few days later that we call each other up and say, hey, did you hit me here?
Yeah.
Right? Because, sometimes it's like, I'll have a bruise like in my upper chest. Like, I don't remember you hitting me here, but I got a bruise here. Yeah. What the heck, right? And so, and then he'll be like, dude, did you hit me here? And it's like, and we're exchanging notes on like, it's like, what you're kind of going back to what we did in a kind of a sparring session. But it's because, we'll slip one in and, we're either feeling it or there's visible representation.
Yes.
But the funny thing is, it's like, we've been doing that for so long. It's like our conversations revolve around that. It's like, so we have fun sparring each other. And, our students are like, what the heck is Sensei's doing? It's like, they're making a lot of noise back there.
Well, it sounds like you're talking about the opposite of what we're talking about, but I know you're not because I'm highly involved in this too. But like when you get to a certain level and then there's somebody who's near to that level with you or the same level or higher level, it becomes like, okay, so we were just talking about like not going so hard that you hurt each other in sparring, but now we're talking about bruises and things. It's like, it's a little different. It's like when you're at this level, you get into this zone where you push it to the edge of where you would be hurting each other. And we're not talking about power necessarily, but like the technique gets so good. And like you said, you get these little moments of accuracy where you sneak things in or the timing is right. And you just catch them like 2 inches of penetration in the ribs. And it's just, but that 2 inches would crush somebody who only had 6 months of training.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, and I know I make it sound like it's like hardcore, but I think Sifu Allen can understand too. I think you'll agree.
I'm baiting you into defending yourself on this. By the way, I'm totally sticking you up against the firing wall. I know that you don't mean to go kill each other, but continue.
No, and that's the thing. It's because we don't have anybody else that we can do this with in a dojo. Right?
Correct.
And so for us, it's like to be able to do it is so much fun because we don't get that opportunity. When we were like just budding, like brown belt and just got our black belt, we were like, we were running around circles, right, with a bunch of other people. But now where we at, it's our playtime, and I think you heard me talking about it earlier. It's like, we get to play with each other and test things out, and it's like we look at different variations. Like it's funny because sometimes, Donnie will come to me and say, "Hey, Kay, you've been working on that variation from this time, huh?" I'm like, "Hey, how'd you know?" Right? It's like, well, because I fell for it, like that kind of talk, and so it becomes that playful kind of like training session where like, with somebody that that you don't have to hold back on because again, that level's there. I can't do that with any of our black belt students because, it's like they're not quite there yet, right?
Well, I think, sorry.
No, keep going.
You just made me think like this razor's edge, right? Of like, what's too much power, what's too much speed, what's too many strikes in the whatever the case is. It's like you said. There's a select few people you can do it with. Well, I was just thinking of like all these partners I have. Like there's a difference between when somebody with some experience and technique kicks you in the cheek versus like
Right.
a white or yellow belt kicks you in the cheek and it's super hard, super no control. They swing a baseball bat at you and it lands because that's what happens with beginners. Like stuff just finds you. It just lands even though it should never land.
Right.
And it's just different. I don't know. Maybe it is because they know they're not really trying to hurt you, but they do still kind of like the fact that they kicked you in the cheek at all as a higher belt. It's showing a level of respect too to your technique and sparring capabilities, because they're saying, listen, I think you're, maybe you're dangerous enough that I have to do something like kick you in the cheek or practice that technique on you. Or maybe it's just, hey, I think that you move great. Let's move together and let's do all the things that we know. But there's like levels there. Alan, I feel like you want to jump in on this.
So a lot of what you said is absolutely true. The the thing about K Sensei's example though is, how long have you guys been sparring each other?
Right.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah. So you both have a managed expectation, and you both know to communicate with each other.
That's a big
before,
word.
Yeah.
during, and after. Right?
And going to hit that spot too, understanding each other's, control levels, right? And that's why I say control is relative to who you work out with, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, you kicked me in the head. Thumbs up. Versus, oh man, you kicked me in the head. Like you're gonna get beat now.
Right.
It's a different. You have to know who you're with. You have to trust them. Sorry, I interrupted you again.
No, I was just saying that there is specifically the specific example is basically the fact that, two fighters have sparred each other so many times that they can tell, this, that, and the other thing about each other even before they bow. Right? So that whole thing, that whole idea is what we all strive to get to, but it's hard to do that in competition, because usually in competition you're facing a new person every time.
And to hit that point, going back to the judging, right? That's why the calibration from the judges in the ring for the first few rounds is really critical.
So important.
And that's why, you got to throw your warnings out to show everybody else, the panel, say, hey, look, I'm not taking that. Right. So,
look, and as a trainee, what does this mean for people? Like with lightsaber fighting, Alan, you've said this before, man. You're playing toys. Like, why would you swing a baseball bat at somebody, a literal baseball bat, at somebody like full force for this like nerdy playtime thing that we do, right? It's like it's an RPG, but like both of you guys, I mean, how can somebody? Because I'm thinking about a particular bruise that our good friend Doug Dearman from San Diego Sabers left me one time we sparred together, and it went all the way across my torso from this just beautiful, and Doug and his Makashi, just this, he utilizes a lot of stabs, but he cut me this time. He used a slash, and I was just I was on the airplane 2 days later, and I texted him, and I was like, dude, did you do a slash? And he was like, what do you mean? And I was, the same thing like you were talking about, Kay. And I was like, well, you were stabbing a lot, but I've got this slash mark, and you're the only person I sparred with. And he was like, I guess I did. And I was like, man, that was like the cleanest. I was just so impressed with how he had gotten it in. And I was thinking back, and then I remembered the exact moment in the match 2 days later. I remember the exact moment that it happened and the exact reason why he was able to get it in. And it was just one of those things where I was like, oh man, this really sucks. I have this bruise and it hurts, and he hit me kind of hard, but it was also like, nah, he wasn't trying to hit me hard. He was just trying to get a really good technique in, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, learning moment, but the training wasn't hard. It was difficult. So what's the difference there? Hard versus difficult. How do you make that distinction in the moment?
Well, I think that's the thing. It's like where you train, again, I favor situational training, over sparring, you know, because I think that's where, I was going to make this point earlier. I think modern day martial arts, especially, for those that jump right into MMA, right? I think they have that kind of Rocky mentality. I'm just going to keep going until, you're going to keep hitting me, but I'm going to go hard, right? But forgetting that martial arts always started with fixed positioning, understanding, right? Certain technique, and then free came afterwards. Free sparring came afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to utilize what you know in context of who you're fighting against, right? I think modern day martial arts, a lot of times forget that, right? And so I think it's almost like a shortcut. I'm just gonna jump. I know how to do enough to be dangerous. I'm just gonna jump into the ring and I'm gonna
Yeah, I
do
just
this.
want to throw hands, and that's how I'm going to
Yeah.
train.
Now, if you're from School of Hard Knocks, and you're getting in fights in the schoolyard, which I don't support, but there are people that have learned how to fight that way, right?
Yeah,
We
it's
talk
true.
little scrappers that know how to fight that way. Is it the best way? No. Do these guys carry a lot of scars? And well, of course, right?
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily put a lightsaber in that person's hand and say,
No.
go swing that at another human, but
And so you see these kind of trends, but I think it takes a little bit of discipline to get good, a lot better, right? And I think as martial art instructors, I think the three of us can understand. Look, this guy might not have all the physical talent in the world, but you give him some tools and you see them grow, right?
mm-hmm.
I think is our world, right? Now
Right,
you
right.
give you give somebody that's got all the physical talent in the world, and sometimes they don't want to do that, and I think that's what we're seeing in the lightsaber
I
world.
see it every day. I see it
Yeah,
every day at my own gym, and I hate to put people under the bus. I love the people I train with, but I see it every day.
yeah, and I think that's the thing, and I think that's the discipline. I think that martial arts is, I think that as traditionalists we bring to the table, but I think modern day, I should say, martial sports, we're not seeing that. They're relying on physical talent more than the discipline of learning these
Mm-hmm.
techniques to be, and they don't understand that by learning some of these techniques, even if it's a few, it's going to make them longer it's going to make them better in the long run, right? It's hard to sell that these days because of of immediate gratification, knowledge. I saw a
Oh,
YouTube
it's hard to
video.
teach just as hard
Yeah,
as it is to sell.
yeah. So it's hard to do that. It's hard to get the buy-in from the people that want to
Mm-hmm.
be. Oh, I want to be the next Saber champion, or I want to be the next.
Well,
Right.
guess what the most popular night of training is at our gym? Sparring night, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that's not training night, that's sparring night. It's an element of training. But if you're knocking each other around and you know, I set this expectation with people that I'm just not. I've got 3 kids. I need to be awake the next morning to take care of them. If you're not going to help me do that, then I'm not going to spar with you tonight. That's it. That's the end of it. And I have that
That's fair.
people know that. And I've said that to people sometimes too, like, listen, this is your second warning kind of thing, and that's my evidence, right? But there's people also where I just know that they're dangerous, but they're not going to hurt me. And I want more of those. I want to train with those people.
yeah. It's funny you say that because I think I mentioned it this before too. You know who the physically talented people are,
Yeah, I
right?
guess I'm saying kind of the same thing you said, I guess.
And you know who the people that are struggling, right? And you can tell by looking at them.
Mm-hmm.
But there are certain people that you look at them and say, "Oh, this person's not that dangerous." But when you actually mix hands with them, it's like, "Oh my goodness!" it's like they don't look like they can execute, but they execute, right?
Yeah.
Those are the ones that are the kind of the scary ones, And I always say this, and Donnie and I, my senior and I, we always laugh. It's like, especially when we train and we're testing new things out on each other. It's like, man, it's the ones you don't see,
Yeah.
right? That the ones that affect you the most, like
Yeah.
because there are times because you just get set up so well that you get hit. It's like, whoa, what the heck hit me, right?
Yeah.
And
like Chris Tucker in Russia. Which one of y'all kicked me?
yeah. But no, but it's true. And those are the times that you want somebody that that's kind of at the same level, that you train together, right? That you help each other grow. It's not about bashing each other's heads in. I mean, it'll get to that point, but in a more fun, more creative and constructive way.
Yeah.
But it's a way, if you can find someone that you can train with, especially when you're sparring, right, that you trust and you understand it, you go that extra mile. It's amazing. I mean, I think all the three of us have kind of had those kind of experiences.
Well, that's why I like training with Alan. He whoops my ass in lightsaber fighting, but it's great.
Dude,
Alan's a good fighter.
He's a great sparring partner.
But yes,
I'm
he's a great sparring partner.
right now.
And here's the thing: Alan has the competitive gene that I lack. I have the self-competitive gene that I know Alan also has, which is when I'm sparring, when Alan's in a competition, he will enter competitions anywhere. He will spar with anyone, anytime. Yep. I'm very selective, and not because I'm a wimp, but because I'm a small man who is easily hurt. But also, it's that point in my life where I'm like, I just need to be selective about it. But at the same time, I'm self-competitive. So if I'm with somebody who's really good, and I want to be with people who are really good, by the way. If I'm with somebody who is really good, I want to do so much better myself that I'm constantly competing with the last move I threw, the last round I had, the last Wednesday I sparred, right? And that's kind of like Alan somehow has mastered the outward competition without becoming an egomaniac. I am an internal egomaniac who's competing with myself every day, right?
But you know what? I think that's the Kung Fu culture, though.
Yes.
They've developed that over years because, I mean, I kind of mentioned it earlier about dog boxing and, tea house and incense, tea and incense burning or house sparring, right? It was never about, let me see if I can beat you. It's like, let's play.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's definitely something that I've picked up through my training, right? And through, my journey to understand where karate comes from, from Southern China, right? And it's funny because Jesse Enkamp actually has a video about that too, about how, and he kind of explains all that. But that's the Kung Fu mentality. I mean, you see it in pop culture too. You see it in Ip Man, right?
Isn't it right? I was just gonna say, is it Ip Man too, where they come into his house and he's like, and the wife is like, I guess you can play for a few minutes, but if you break anything, you're in big trouble, right? But then this guy comes in and he's totally disrespectful about the mentality, and Ip Man's like, no, I will play with you, but don't break my stuff. And then this guy's like, I'm going to break everything and you too. And it's like, man, I got to spar with you because, you're in my home.
I see that in Alan because he's not there. He's not being, malice. He doesn't have any malice towards you when you fight. It's like,
right.
It's, he's genuinely enjoying the opportunity to mix it up, right?
Almost maniacal in his enjoyment of the battle.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I have another friend of mine who's an Aikido sensei.
I somehow feel like I'm being attacked, but in a good way.
Yes. It's all showered with confetti and affection.
But no, you're absolutely right. I completely agree with you. I am smiling like the Joker behind my mask.
Well, and you know how I know this because Jill and I commentated the last tournament that Steve put on. Or one of the last ones. And she totally outed you. you know, and that's the thing. Like, you've also got the personal, because that's how you got to that point of your skill and the way that you perceive others with you're training with and competing with, is the personal competition of trying to be not just a better martial artist, but a better person every day, right? Like,
Right.
and nobody's
Absolutely.
perfect, but you're just trying to be a better you today than you were maybe yesterday. I
Yeah,
don't
you know
know.
it's funny. I need to get Sifu Allen to meet my buddy Brandon Guadan, who's a gung har master. He actually married the daughter of a gung har master.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
but he's an Aikido sensei in his own right. But the mentality is the same, and I think that comes from his father-in-law because he practices a little bit too.
Mm.
And when I used to borrow the dojo, I used to sublet his dojo for karate and for sabers, and orange actually,
Oh
and that was
yeah.
when, yeah, he would always say, "Hey, Kay, let's play," and I'm
Right.
like, "Wait, Aikido versus karate or Kung Fu versus karate? Which one?"
Yeah.
but but he was very he was always out. He was always searching for knowledge to say, "Hey,
hmm
what about this? What about that?"
hmm
It was always about kind of like trading knowledge that way, and sharing, right? And
Yeah.
what's the best way of sharing? You know,
One of my
either power.
best friends here, probably my best friend here in Ohio. When I moved here, I met him at another friend's house, somebody that my wife had went to school with over, the years and whatever. And they're all into fighting. They're all dudes and all into MMA fighting, and they're all big MMA fans, but none of them really train. And I met this guy through them, just watching a UFC event one night. And, I found out that he was my age, which was kind of cool because I'm older than most of them. And that he was just like really interested in the fact that I actually did this stuff. And at the age of like 33 at the time, like people aren't thinking, well, let me just take up cage fighting as a hobby. But he owned a coffee shop in town, and he was like, I just really like this stuff, but I kind of need to get in shape too. So can I like come to class, and will you like work with me, be my training partner? Well, now he's like way more likely to spar with any old person than I am, for sure. And it's the same thing. Like, I have this trust with him now where, like, okay, let's do 3 minutes of nothing but clinch work. And I trust that, like, I'm not going to get my elbow or my jaw elbowed off because he's going to get ticked at me for landing a little bit of a knee or something, right? Like, there's just trade where I understand the difference there. But something that I kind of want to just jump the fence here a little bit. Something that Jesse had mentioned, you keep bringing up the word play, was that's the way that it should be considered in it. That's like what play is about for children. It's about like the things they're going to do in life later, right? But like organizing it in their brains and in their bodies and how it's going to go with other people and the anthropology of it, right? The sociology of it. And he brought up the Cuban boxers and how they're like so incredibly at the top of the elite as far as the boxing world. And it's true, like wrestling too, but their boxing is just incredible. But what is one of the other things that Cubans do amazingly? Dance and play soccer, right? Baseball, games. They play games. And when you go into a boxing gym, if it's in a Cuban, like primarily Cuban boxing gym, and by the way, this is not like a racial thing. This is the way that it is. Like when we talk about like Japanese martial arts, Chinese martial arts, European, that's the same thing with boxing. There's like English boxing. There's like, East Coast, West Coast boxing. There's Cuban, there's Mexican box. So it's not, nobody's getting called out for anything. But anyway, He's talking like how in the gym it's just playtime, it's dancing, and they have salsa music on, and that's the way it was in any of the boxing gyms I've ever seen in the area where I grew up, and a lot of those were predominantly either Italian, Irish, or black, and those people always had music on. It was always playtime. It was always touch tag and, slipping the head movement, moving the feet. You got to learn to dance. You got to learn to jump rope. Jump rope is a game. And these people are doing it. Hopscotch. There's hopscotch in a lot of boxing gyms. Why? Because it's freaking good. And it's a game. And it gets you reflexively doing things with your feet that you balance and all these things. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, it's so funny that you brought up that word play so many times because that's the way I like to think of it. But, sometimes it's not the popular way to think of it. And I don't think that's good. I think people need to I don't know, man. It can't be fun to constantly be getting brain cells deleted every week, but some of these people must think it's fun.
And I think that's just a misconception of popular culture, and the whole the myth about how things are really in a dojo, that kind of stuff. It's just we do a lot of gamification in regards to kumite drills too. Like a lot of it, especially with our kids, because they understand when to engage, how to engage. I mean, I got a few drills that I use for quick touch.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I also have more competitive games for the adults, right? So
sure,
it's
or power based drills that you can do with people who have this, who can support a body shield or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, look at the military, man. I mean, how many records they do? How many drills, mock battles. I mean, these are
all games. They call it war games.
Yeah, and even in education now, gamification is actually a big strategy in the classroom.
Yep.
In regards to for learning, and I think it's because we learn better when we're having fun. It's just a matter of having fun, and I think that's what drove the old monks that couldn't practice in the open.
Isn't that what drove us to lightsabers in the first place?
Exactly.
It's our favorite toys,
sticks, man.
It's our favorite toys, man.
I mean, it's time to bring out the wrapping paper. Like the cores, right? It's like, come on! It's like
I feel like Heath Ledger, man. Why so serious? Like, it really is. Like, and Alan, I keep crediting with you this, but every time I think about like this, why are these two people like knocking each other around the damn cage right now? And I can tell the difference when it's like what Kay was talking about earlier, when it's two people who are showing a certain level of respect in their play with their power and their speed, right? Yeah. And their technique, versus two people who can't decide whose stick measures longer. So
it's you got to look at the ego too. I mean, there's no ego in any of that. That's the great thing about like being able to find somebody to spar with like that, because you're both coming from a level of humility, because you're explaining, hey, how did you hit me, right?
I feel like there's a difference when you feel like you have to defend yourself versus like, okay, so now I got to block. Now I got to make sure I slip, right? There's a difference. You definitely know when you're sparring somebody that like, oh crap, now I have to actually, this is now self-defense.
Well, there's a big difference, because on the flip side, you got the fight or flight response on the other side. Right? Excuse me. So like, I mean, when you look at, you can have fun and learn, but then when your life's on the line, right? I mean, this is why we do martial arts, for self-defense, right? When your life's on the line, or you need to execute, so you need to protect yourself. There's a difference. Now there's people that thrive on that side, right? It's just I mean,
well, maybe they should get into pro fighting where they're paid to channel that, right?
Well, that's what they do say. Hey, like some of these things, it does take a certain mentality or a certain type of
a certain few screws loose, as they say. Yeah. Well, don't loosen the screws on purpose, I guess is guess
Is a,
maybe the topic at hand, right?
yeah, I think so. I think that's a good way to put it.
Go into them with everything at least hand tightened. Okay, this is going to wrap us up. It's going to be shorter. Kay, have you watched The Acolyte at all?
I am on. I don't want to blow over. I think I'm about 6 episodes in.
Okay, so this is our final topic for the night. Just give us some of your thoughts so far. We won't spoil anything for you.
No, it's fine. I do gotta say this: Star Wars fans, freaking, you guys gotta loosen up, man. Because we are in a day and age where we have content, right? It wasn't like after A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi where we didn't have anything till the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay, we have content now. Enjoy it for what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's I'm getting sick and tired of hearing all these people. Oh, it's 3 episodes in, and this sucks.
This time around, Alan knows I dabbled a little bit in opinions, but I tried to stay pretty clean between viewings, and I would only kind of look after I had already watched it at what people were saying. But yeah, I feel Alan and I both feel largely the same way. It's like, man, you got like most of the things you asked for, and you didn't even know it because you were yelling too loud to hear it.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Sit back and just, it may be good, it may be bad, but sit back. You have content. I remember a majority of part of my youth where I was like dying for more and I didn't have anything, right? And so I had to settle for some crap that was on TV. It's just like, come on. But now, I mean, it's like you got stuff that people, it's if it's working, it's working. If it's not, it's not. I understand it's your opinion, but man, I mean, we're in the age where it's good to be a Star Wars fan, right?
Oh
Right.
my God.
And I think people are missing that point. It's like I'm at that level. I'm like, pretty much like what, 3rd generation. So it's like when it comes to Star Wars, so it's like, being able to share that with my kids, right? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Having my kids' eyes light up, when they get to spend some time with dad to kind of sit down and watch something like some, regardless if it's Tales of the Jedi or if it's any of this content that's on that these like, it's just nice to have. And I think people are kind of poo-pooing on it, and it's like,
well, you don't have to watch everything, right? There's always that.
Yeah.
And I know that's kind of a trite argument sometimes because people, if you're a real Star Wars fan, I put real in air quotes, of course. But if you're a Star Wars fan, you want to like it all, right?
True.
You want to take it all in and get the whole picture, the whole story, right?
Yeah.
But something that Alan had brought up in one of our Acolyte commentaries that you should all go back and listen to.
Yeah, you should.
Is that not everything we got before was as good as we thought it was.
Yeah.
Right.
Like looking back on a lot of it now, the movies that people hated back then, like the prequels, are actually loved now. And some of the stuff that was loved then, like the Thrawn novels and stuff, they're kind of being revealed to be not as amazing as we thought. And this is, again, my opinion based on what I see, and it could be inaccurate for many.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So 5-6 episodes in, not all great. Let's just be honest. They weren't all amazing episodes, but you did get a lot of what you asked for. I don't know. I do tend to play devil's advocate, but I am a Star Wars apologist as well.
Yeah.
I like to like Star Wars. I don't care who knows it.
In my honest opinion, is it one of the better stories? I would say, average. It's not good.
Story itself,
Yeah, it's
I
not
would agree,
bad.
average.
Yeah. So I mean, but I'm just happy that there's content. There's okay. Wow, this is cool. They're
Mm-hmm.
doing this. They're setting it in the universe, right? And you're starting to see different perspectives of how you know how the storyline is going.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to blow it for anybody that hasn't seen it, but it's nice to see the dichotomy of Jedi and Sith, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really neat to see that. Because this is stuff that's outside of the of canon, right? Like this is now becoming Disney's canon, but I'm talking about the actual movies, right? I know the traditionalists, the Michael Stackpole, like the novel readers and stuff. Don't get me wrong.
My heart.
Hey, listeners, I love Michael Stackpole, right? He does
me too,
things
man.
amazing in the Star Wars universe. He just does amazing stuff in the BattleTech universe. He's an awesome writer. Don't get me wrong, right? And I love his novels, right? And I love some of the old school, what they call the legends, the legends
X-Wing series.
The X-Wing series, man. Rogue Squadron stuff is awesome, man. I love
it really
stuff.
is. It's so good.
So don't get me wrong. See, but I'm one of those guys that if the content's there, I look for continuity. But if continuity changes, like what they do with Star Trek, it's like, okay, I just take it for what it is. Right?
Be water, right? You can be water with it.
Yeah. So I mean, to me, it's entertainment, right? It's not, that's what it is. It's like and to me, if something changes, it's like, okay, well, what's the perspective change, right?
Mm-hmm. I wonder if the Godzilla fans get into these debates. I'm sure they do.
Oh, they do, because same with Ultraman, right? Ultraman, there's so many different variations.
Yeah, so many fandoms that get into these. I'm a Wolverine guy. That's another one where I'm like, and Ghost Rider. Nobody likes Ghost Rider, but Ghost Rider is my favorite superhero.
There you go.
And I juggle him and Wolverine. They're probably on the same scale. And I hate these new Ghost Rider iterations where, and I don't really have no basis for it, right? So I'm the same guy I'm complaining about in a different fandom. But I don't go on social media and just crap all over Ghost Rider pictures that artists have worked hard on or whatever. It just doesn't. But I see that there's an artist, and I won't blow his spot up. He's a really good artist, and his main focus is Star Wars art. But he hates all this new Star Wars content. Since 2015, just craps all over everything. Meanwhile, makes hundreds of dollars on paintings of the characters he professes to hate. I can't hate him for playing the game. But it is disingenuous to me, and I wonder, why do you even care to why do you spend all your time painting a picture of a character you don't like, then in the caption of the post, it's all these things you hate about Star Wars now.
Yeah.
It's the novels were so much better 20 years ago. What is this crap? It's dude, then why did you paint a picture of that guy? I don't understand. Just paint a picture of Darth Vader for the next 30 years. Because that's clearly all you want. I don't know. Boys, jump on this for another few minutes.
Yeah. No, it's but I think that's the same in kind of jumping back. It's I think that's the same in the martial arts world too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think that's where my perspective is. Look, there's an origin, it branched out, right? And it is what it is, right? And so you have your opinion, and people, if you've trained, you know what quality is. You've trained, you know what needs a little help, right?
Yeah.
And so, are you going to be the one to sit there and point and just crapping on everybody, or are you going to be the person that's going to go there and say, "Hey, let me help you"?
I think that's true with Star Wars too. It's important to be kind of critical as a fan of some of the things you do or don't like, but at the same time, are you going to make the movie?
Yeah, or you ask some of these guys that are very critical, almost talk to you exactly. Say, "Hey, then how would you have written it?"
Yeah, I can't imagine it's that much better, but I'm willing to read it. I'm willing to try. I like Star Wars. I'm willing to try. Yeah. I've been working on a Star Wars comic book for 10, 15 years. Nobody will ever see it, and I will never tell you what it's about. But I've been working on it, and nobody wants to read my crappy story. but I wanted to write it, and that's all it was. And that's okay though. Like,
Yeah.
if you have opinions on the way that like Rey should have been portrayed in The Last Jedi or whatever the case is, that's cool. Like, I want to listen to your opinion. I don't have to agree, and that actually makes me excited. But that's not the way that a lot of people perceive it, I don't think.
No, and that's the thing, and that's why I
Not
like.
that I'm an amazing like philosopher or anything. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe the crabs are right.
But you know what? Variation is the taste of life.
Mm.
So I mean, that's what I appreciate. It's like, okay, well, this is this person. This is this person's way of thinking how this would have ended up. That way. He didn't want to make Luke. He didn't want to continue his story on, right, and change it all up. That's fine, right? It's those kind of things, like, but even then, there are nuggets that come out, that make it worthwhile. I mean,
Well, how about the martial arts in The Acolyte?
Yeah, it's been really good that part. I don't have any issues with that.
If you want a good lightsaber fight or want to see some Jedi, I mean, you don't have to watch the whole episode. Just hit the fast forward button.
Just look for the bright.
Just look for the bright light and back up a little bit and watch. Enjoy. Like, it doesn't have to be more complicated than that. And you're not offending me, the hardcore loves it all Star Wars fan. If that's the way you like to do it, you're not offending me. And you're certainly not getting clout with me by like crapping all over the stuff I want to spend my time and money on.
Yeah, there is, like you were saying earlier, there is a way to crap all over and give your honest opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Certain way to do that.
Yeah.
If you just crap all over it, it's just gonna bring them.
Hey, I grew up in the Philly area. I know all about constructive crappity. Yeah, no, it's true. Alan, I feel like you want to jump on this again.
Oh, it's mainly the same thing we said throughout our Acolyte watch throughs.
Yeah.
And it's whenever somebody tells us their opinion of whatever it is, once again, it is valid because it is your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is your opinion, and if you start off the conversation with "you won't change my mind about this," then you're not willing to have a conversation about it.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, and that opinion has become your truth.
Right, and that's unfortunate because there's a lot of things that you probably don't see because you don't see it from the same point of view other people can see it from.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like it's art. And these are all everything that you see and digest is an interpretation of that art. And like you said earlier, the things from our childhood that we thought were really cool really aren't that cool if you think about it nowadays. And it's one of those things. It's like, oh, at the time when I was, what did Bede say? When I was a 17-year-old edgelord, this was the greatest thing on earth. But then you read it again, when you're twice, 3 times that age, you're like, ooh, this is problematic, actually.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. So it's sign of the
times.
Well,
and you can still like stuff just to like it. Like, just because it's not canon anymore doesn't mean you can't still like it. Right. Dude, I started reading the X-Wing novels like 3 years ago. Like, they've been out forever.
Yeah, but this is my point. Good art is good art.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's only excuse me. It's only good art to the people that think it's good art.
Yeah.
Right. And somebody might think it's bad art, but I look at it this way. If it's something that is truly, truly bad, right, then there are no redeeming qualities.
Yeah.
If there are redeeming qualities, and like I explained before, if something is unfinished and you've already written it off, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Right. That's not. This is incorrect. This is an incomplete project. This is not something that the painting is not complete. The work of art is not complete. Once it's complete, then please talk to me intelligently about your reasons for it being like that. Yeah. And if it's if it's as simple as, well, that's not how the Force works. Well, okay, explain it to me, Han Solo,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
or it's like, yeah, but you can see the whole idea is about perspective and blah blah blah,
hmm
and then you have a conversation about it and not a
Does nobody
I don't know,
remember from a certain point of view? Does
yeah,
nobody remember that?
Yeah.
and it's I'm I guess I don't mind that people have their opinions. I just don't want a sermon every time somebody has
Yes.
an opinion.
Exactly.
Oh, every time you're looking at like a Star Wars toy in Target or something, and like that nerd walks around the corner, that adult nerd just like you, but not just like you, walks around the corner and goes, "Ugh, didn't you just hate Rise of
Yeah.
Skywalker? Like, why would they ever blah blah blah?" And I'm like, dude, I just like, how am I going to get away from this person as fast as I can? You have ruined
I
looking at Star
always
Wars toys for me. Thank you.
I I always tell them, "Oh no, I love it because it had every single ship ever in Star Wars in a single shot."
But they don't.
It,
They don't. I can't get into. I can't. I just can't, Alan.
maybe my toxic trait is positivity then. So
Yeah, for me, I'm like, I used to kind of like in the last Jedi days, we'll say,
mhm,
I had the energy for that, and I
mhm.
think after like everybody crapped on Kenobi and then crapped on Ahsoka and then crapped on like the Solo movie, which like I understand is not this tremendous. It's not The Godfather, but I mean it's a great flick. Um,
Yeah, all of those
so
projects that you just talked about are awesome
I
in
know.
my book.
And
Yeah.
when people started crapping on that, I just lost my energy to listen anymore. And
Well,
that's kind of
okay,
what I mean.
so eventually it becomes like talking to a brick wall. I
Exactly.
understand that.
Or they
Uh,
try to convince you that
yeah.
you're like stupid somehow or like wrong
Right.
somehow. I'm like, I don't know,
Well,
man. You
that's
got me at
that's
red
what
lightsaber. I don't know what to tell you.
that's where my argument comes into play. I was like, okay, well, did you like every single Star Wars movie? No? Okay. Did you like every single thing? Is there something in your life that you like and then you
Yeah.
watched again and thought,
Yeah.
wow, that really was bad? And that's the conversations I have with those people. And
Dude,
most of
Jar
them like,
Jar and the Ewoks are breathing a sigh of relief these days.
right. And that's part of the thing. It's just like, okay, are we talking about how Obi-Wan's lightsaber is the only lightsaber in the galaxy that draws blood? You know?
Oh my
You
god.
know?
I didn't even think
I
about
was like,
that. That's hilarious.
yeah. So it's like one of those things where you have to be like, okay, first of all, your opinion valid because it's your opinion and everybody
Sure.
has an opinion. Totally cool. However, here's my opinion. Now, do you want to actually have a discourse about it and possibly see it from my point of view, or do you just want to stand on your soapbox?
Yeah.
And usually when I say those words, almost exactly like that too.
Yeah.
It's almost become a thing for me.
No,
Um,
serious, man. It's like the art of conversation sometimes is dead in that regards.
Yeah.
yeah, and that then it becomes one of those things like, okay, now I know exactly, who we're talking. But this again, tying it back to combat and martial arts, that's the kind of stuff where I see that much like, the old masters would call it play as well, much like Kay was talking about. It's, hey, do you want to play? It's basically like, hey, check out this new move.
Mm-hmm.
Check out this
Mm-hmm.
thing
Mm-hmm.
I just
Look what
learned.
I can
Oh,
do.
hey, yeah, and that's one of those things where people want to show that to you with their opinion, but a lot of times it's like, okay, great, but now can I show you mine? And there's like a one-sidedness
Yes.
that
Yeah,
that
that's
the
true.
internet that
Yes.
the internet has given us
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
that is not, is no longer reciprocal,
Yeah.
right? So if we are actually, going to be, in a healthy conversation instead of a one-sided conversation, then you have to actually open yourself up to that. Now,
Mm.
I keep on pointing out that, every time somebody says that, like you said, folks, you don't have to watch it, right?
Yeah. It's so easy to hit the pause
so
button,
true.
think
It's so
about it,
true.
maybe hit the
Yeah,
off button.
yeah.
It's so easy.
And you know what? I totally respect there. I've met some people who are like, I stopped watching it after episode 3. I'm like,
That's
that's
fine.
awesome.
You gave it a
That's
try.
respectable.
There you
Yeah.
go.
What my kids call a no thank you bite, you know?
And it's one of those things. It's like, okay, you don't like this type of storytelling,
Yep,
understandable.
yep.
And then there's some people on the other side that did what I asked and watched the whole thing and said, no, X, Y, Z, you know, no redeeming qualities, blah blah blah. I'm like, okay,
Okay,
fair. That's a
okay.
fair assessment. You know. Now let's talk about these other opinions that you have about other movies. You know,
Right.
because that conversation's over. It's closed. It's a closed conversation because you've already made up your mind and you're not willing to change it,
It's actually a
right?
cardinal sin in like theater class
Hmm.
to give a stop to the conversation or the dialogue or the intention or whatever's going on.
Right.
They call it yes and. You always
Right.
have to have a yes and. That's why like
Yes and yes but
yeah,
but
yes or yes.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. Versus
But that's the
you know
improvisation, right?
exactly. So the simple concept would be like would you like lemonade today? No. Well, that would be a stop. Well, I can't work with that. Okay.
Right.
Would you like lemonade today? Well, I really prefer iced tea. Okay, now we can have a conversation. And when you're talking about theater, that's the way that plays are written and movies are written and The Acolyte was written, right? So
yeah, and that's the beauty of it, right? Is like you have and because it's so divisive, because the IP is so divisive, it's mainly because some people want to hold on so tightly to what they remember, even if they are remembering it incorrectly. And some people are like, yes, give me more. Ooh, okay, that's a piece of something I remember. That's awesome. Now
yes,
it's actually they're celebrating it
yes,
instead of pulling it down,
yes,
Yeah.
right?
yes. I don't need all 50 issues of the comics that went along with Cortosis. Just the
Right.
fact that there's
Or
Cortosis is fine with me.
or a shot by shot of the Vader comic book,
Right,
right?
right.
And they don't translate, right? It's a different medium. It's a different type of storytelling. If you point a camera at an actor, you can't actually see their thought
But
balloons
Alan, why don't they just make the Force Unleashed in one of these series?
because it's very problematic for every other thing that they've made canon.
It just does. It's
It,
not the right thing. It's a video game because it's supposed to be a video game.
yeah, it's a different story altogether. To not even so I have the same conversation about the Halo series.
Oh yeah. Oh
That's on
yeah.
Paramount Plus.
Oh,
And
yeah.
listen, I'm a big Halo fan. I'm not the biggest Halo fan. I don't like rush to buy every game, but I love the lore and okay, there will be a miniatures game based on Halo coming out in September, so
Hint, hint.
that'll be pretty fun. But here's my thing is like they did 2 seasons of the show, and fans also are divided by it. Some people are like, "Oh, this is a cool way to show my friends the Halo universe without having to sit down and play 10 to 60 hours of game,"
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas some people are just like, "That's not right. That's not Halo at all. That's blah blah blah. Why does he take off his helmet and blah blah blah?" And I usually go, "Well, can you show me emotion without
Right.
can an actor?"
Well, Boba Fett did it.
Yeah,
No, he
yeah.
didn't.
It's like
He took his helmet
it's
off
like
so many times.
yeah, and Mandalorian proved it was possible. It's like, no, they didn't, right?
Yeah.
They showed this thing, and guess what? The main guy wasn't even in the suit the 3rd season,
Well, and think
right?
about this too, Alan.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, I know you know this, but like some people don't know this. They pay these actors to see their faces.
Right.
They're not getting their money's worth if they don't put their face up on that screen somewhere.
Right.
So it really is that simple sometimes. Like, you don't get the movie if they don't see your face.
Right.
Period.
And also,
So if you want a Halo
also,
movie, Halo fanboys and fangirls, then you
there's
might have to
also
see a face.
There's also a lot of scenes where it doesn't make sense for Master Chief to be in his armor. It doesn't make sense for Master Chief to have his helmet on. Now, and for me, being raised by a drill instructor in the military, like, if you walk in somewhere, your hat comes off your head.
Yes, my dad was
Right?
that way too.
Only women and children wear their hats inside. That was how I was raised, right? And so, why would you have your helmet on if you're in headquarters?
Right.
Like you don't need to do that. And this is also like, this is the same thing they did about the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd, right? They made a big ruckus, like, Judge Dredd never takes off his helmet. It's like, but it's Sylvester Stallone.
Right.
And look, most of this movie, like a good quarter of this movie, happens in police headquarters. It worked in the revamped Dredd that came out, 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, but you had a compelling supporting cast whose faces did all the work.
Yeah,
and Carl Urban is a bad MFer.
But they show him
not that Sylvester
putting
Stallone
on his helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah, he put on his helmet in the beginning.
True.
Which says,
True.
Guess what? In headquarters, he didn't have his helmet on.
Oh,
but he
yeah,
put it on.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, he put it on.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah,
Neither did I.
And he put it on when he went to go out patrol is when the movie starts.
Yeah.
Which is what I was thinking was like, okay, it's like in Batman, like he puts the cowl on, and then for in Batman, usually you'll see Bruce Wayne, but for a while it's like it's just Batman, right? Well, that's the way I thought of it with Dredd. It was like, oh, he put his helmet on, and now for the rest of the movie he's Dredd. Right, that makes sense. Cool. But you just explained it on a level that I hadn't thought of that really makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, these are nitpicks by fans.
Well, and it's ways to fansplain things too.
Right. Exactly. And here's the thing. I enjoy Star Wars. I love the universe because there's so much you can do with it. And anything you can add to the universe without actually breaking any of the pre-established lore is a thumbs up in my book.
Yeah, I agree.
So like when we spoke about like Kiadi Mundi, you're like, okay, something has to happen. Is in my mind it was like, oh, if that is Kiadi Mundi and he has the famous line, the Sith have been around for 1,000 years. Then when they explain how that happens in Acolyte, I'm like, okay.
Sure. Right.
Because it makes sense in the public facing, and also in the other sense, it's just like, oh, okay, this is a small group of people that know what actually happened, and everybody that saw Chimere is dead.
Yeah.
Or does not remember him.
Well, and with Kiadi Mundi, it's funny. Just like a little side note, I saw a bunch of the trolls complaining that Kiadi Mundi is like over 100 years old. Like, where was that ever like contested before? Did they say he was like 37 at the time of the Phantom Menace? Like, I don't remember them ever giving him an age. And if they did in like a comic book or something, I read a lot of those. I don't remember it. And if they did, I don't care. Like, I just don't care. Sure, he's over 100. He's a conehead. I don't care.
Right.
He's not from Chicago. I don't disbelieve it.
Right. Well, and that's the funny thing, right? Every single opinion that is it seems negative is nitpicking about stuff that you're like, okay, great, but now like that. So my caveat to this is that if you watch the whole thing and you still did not enjoy it, great. At least you have an informed opinion of why you don't like it.
Yeah, that is for real.
I think it's like the difference between that no thank you bite, which is like, okay, I tried this, I really don't like it, I'm not going to eat anymore. And then there's like, I tried this, I kind of like it, but it's making me feel weird. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
That's like we
Yeah.
don't that we're disregarding that one. Then there's
Yeah.
like I tried it. I don't like it. I don't want to like it. I'm going to act like it's making me sick. I'm going to act like I'm allergic to I don't know. It just
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the person that like if I was ever that person at a friend's house for dinner, they would have called my mom right up and been like, "You know what your little poop head son just said to me?" Right? And like versus like if I was somewhere for dinner or something and, you know, just the way that I was brought up, the manners was like, okay, I'm going to try this because you spent the time to cook it for me. And if I don't like it, I'm going to try to choke a little bit more down out of respect and maybe find an alternative on the table here.
Well, there's a big part of what you said there is also very true. Is the culture of growing up is different now,
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
There is there are some of us who train, and I say train because you have to train them.
Yeah.
You train your kids to be like, okay, here are your core values. Here's how you behave. And then there's, the opposite side where they're just like, I have to raise myself, you know? And
Spoilers for episode 3 of The Acolyte, right? Like this is
Yeah.
kind of what was wrestled with.
Yeah, but then there's also the point of, okay, once you get to a certain point in your life, you have to take a step back and go, okay, what made me the way I am?
Mm-hmm.
Because somehow this quote unquote triggers me, or this particular thing is bad and I can only see bad, or in I think one thing I saw was somebody called a friend of mine out about it. Like, do you like anything anymore?
Yeah.
Because all you ever do is criticize everything
Mhm.
anybody else makes. So it's like, if you don't like, that's fine. We just want to know so that we can engage in conversation, because the conversations with you are all negative. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's one of those things. And again, conversation is another word for any sort of interaction, and also like we can even put that into fighting, right? Eventually there's certain behaviors where you just don't want to spar with that person anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't want to be in the same dojo as them anymore, because that their negativity or their negative behavior is just like seeping into everything. My teacher used to call it poison in the well.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Don't
And
bring whatever is outside of the dojo into the dojo.
right.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, with that, I think we have mopped the dojo floors successfully. Our shoes are all side by side against the wall, and we are ready to bow out. So, Sensei, why don't you leave us with a quick closing thought? I think all of our topics kind of follow the same vein. That wasn't on purpose, but that's kind of the way it happened. So why don't you give us a little something to think about before we wrap up with the, and we've been at it for a while. So,
No, I appreciate it. And I think the key thing I'm picking up tonight is life is a lot more simple than we really think. Kind of like going back to the very beginning, right? That one little peg holding the katana together. It's the simple things. It's the simple things that are really complex. And so, I think, with life, regards to conversation, regards to, training, regards to how tournaments and how we compete and all these, we just got to remember that, that everything's built on a simple foundation. And, we, I think as humans, we make it more complicated than they really are. So let's try to stay simple, guys.
yeah, I like that. That was
Love it.
phenomenal. SaberMartialArts.life. Check out last week's episode with Sensei Yamasaki. Check out anything else I've mentioned. I'll try to make sure it's in the video or the show description, but who knows? Jesse Encamp, shout out to you. We'll tag you in the video. Maybe you'll come on the show too. Sensei, you know I'd invite you on if that was the case. And McDojo Life as well. Go check out those videos about the jiu-jitsu referee and of course the hard versus play sparring on Jesse's channel. And thank you, Kay, as well. Thank you, Alan, as well. We will
Always a pleasure.
see you guys, or you will hear us guys in the next episode. Please subscribe. Please share it with a friend. Please leave us a comment. If you hated everything we said tonight and totally disagree, send us an email. As you know, we like to hear this up to a point anyway, and we're interested in your opinions. So Saber maoutreach@gmail.com. That's me. Master Venable at phoenixsaber.com. That's Alan. If you want to get in contact with Kay, visit sabermartialarts.life and visit the SoCal Saber Academy page. His contact information is right there. And yeah, thank you very much for listening. Bring your own saber.
This party's over.